Before we dive in, you already know the rules of this channel. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and drop a comment below, because the story you're about to hear isn't just disturbing, it's the kind that stays with you long after the screen goes dark. Sirens were already cutting through the cold Maryland evening by the time the first officer arrived. Blue and red lights washed over the quiet neighborhood of Parkville, a place where parents usually left their porch lights on and kids rode scooters until sunset. But tonight, that calm veneer had been ripped apart. 3 children, siblings aged 6, 8, and 10, were huddled together on the curb, wrapped in emergency blankets, their small hands trembling. A nearby patrol car idled, its headlights fixed on a narrow alleyway still crawling with officers. A helicopter hovered overhead, its spotlight tracing the path of a chase that had ended only minutes earlier. And lying face down on the pavement, handcuffed and breathless, was 19-year-old Cameron Hale. Just 15 minutes earlier, the children had been walking home from a neighborhood playground. Their father had sent a text, "On my way to get you, stay together." They never received it. Their phone battery had died. Witnesses say a young man in a gray hoodie approached them calmly, almost too calmly, as if rehearsing the moment in his head. He asked where their parents were. He asked if they needed help getting home. He said their dad had sent him. The youngest child clung to her sister's arm, uneasy. But the boy, the oldest, noticed something else. The man kept glancing over his shoulder, watching the street, watching the houses, watching for something none of them understood. Minutes later, a neighbor walking his dog saw the man trying to usher all 3 children toward the alley. The dog barked wildly, snapping the kids out of their daze. The neighbor shouted, and suddenly, the man bolted, dragging the youngest girl by the wrist before dropping her and running when multiple neighbors yelled and rushed toward him. Police flooded the area. The chase lasted only 5 blocks, but the fear traveling through that neighborhood was far larger. As Cameron was lifted from the pavement and placed in the back of a cruiser, officers found something strange in his pocket. A folded sheet of paper, soaked with sweat. A map, hand-drawn, markings circling certain houses in the area, including the children's home. Inside the police station that night, detectives watched Cameron sit silently in the interview room. No tears, no panic, just stillness, almost like he'd been expecting to be caught. But just as investigators began to piece things together, a sergeant stepped into the room holding a manila envelope. Something had just come in, something that would shatter the simple attempted kidnapping theory the officers first believed. Because inside that envelope was a photograph. And the person standing next to Cameron in that photo was someone the detectives thought they'd never see again. The photograph slid across the metal table, stopping in front of Detective Marisha Clark. She had seen thousands of images in her 15 years with the department, but this one froze her breath. Cameron Hale stood beside a man at least 20 years older, both of them staring blankly at the camera. The older man's arm rested on Cameron's shoulder, almost fatherly. But it wasn't the pose that sent a cold ripple through Marissa. It was the man's face, someone whose name had haunted case files for nearly a decade. Eli Brennan, a former youth counselor from another Maryland county, a man who vanished after multiple allegations surfaced. Allegations involving manipulation, coercion, and luring minors away from their families. He was never charged. He disappeared before investigators could reach him. The case went cold, and the victims, now adults, still carried scars. Now here he was, in a photo with the 19-year-old who had just attempted to take 3 children off the street. Marissa stepped into the observation room where her partner, Detective Jonah Reyes, watched Cameron through the one-way glass. "We have a problem," she said, handing him the photo. Jonah's brow tightened. We thought Brennan left the state. That's what everyone thought. Inside the interview room, Cameron sat rigid, his eyes unfocused. He hadn't spoken a word since his arrest, not even when they informed him of the charges. Jonah took a breath, entered the room, and placed the photo in front of him. "We know who he is, and we know you're not working alone, Cameron. So help us understand, where is Eli Brennan now?" For the first time, Cameron blinked. His throat moved like he wanted to speak but couldn't. His fingers curled into fists. Meanwhile, officers canvassed the alleyway where the attempted kidnapping took place. Behind a dumpster, one officer found something odd: a small black key card with no markings except a single embossed number, 47. It looked like it belonged to a storage facility or a secured residential building. A second officer, searching the street, located a discarded prepaid phone. No contacts, no history, only one outgoing message: "They're the last ones. I'll bring them tonight." Back at the station, Marissa and Jonah reviewed the message. Something clicked. The map in Cameron's pocket, the circled houses, they weren't random. Each one matched addresses belonging to families with young children, all within a mile radius. "This wasn't impulsive," Marissa whispered. "This was a collection pattern, or a delivery route," Jonah added grimly.
When they returned to the interview room, they found Cameron staring at the photo. Not angrily, not with fear, but with something far more unsettling: regret. He finally spoke, barely above a whisper. "You're already too late." Marissa leaned forward. "Too late for what, Cameron? Where is Brennan?" Cameron lifted his eyes, and for the first time since his arrest, they filled with something that looked like genuine panic. "He's leaving Maryland tonight, and he's not going alone." A sudden knock hit the door. An officer rushed in, breathless. "You need to see this. A call just came in from a storage facility off Harford Road, Unit 47. It's registered under a fake name." He swallowed hard, and the manager says he heard crying coming from inside. The drive to the storage facility was a blur of flashing lights, radio chatter, and tightening fear. Detective Marissa Clark gripped the dashboard as the cruiser tore down Harford Road. Each second felt like a life slipping further out of reach. Jonah Reyes, behind the wheel, kept his eyes locked on the road, jaw clenched with the kind of controlled anger only seasoned detectives understood. Unit 47. Children possibly inside. And a man, a ghost from past cases, pulling the strings. By the time they arrived, the entire facility was swarming with officers. The manager, pale and shaking, pointed toward the back row of units. "It's that one. I was locking up when I heard it again. Sounded like a kid trying not to cry." Marissa and Jonah approached Unit 47 slowly, weapons drawn, flashlights cutting through the dim corridor. The metal door was secured with a heavy padlock. Jonah tested it. Solid. "Bolt cutters," he ordered. Within seconds, an officer brought them. As Jonah snapped through the lock, Marissa listened closely. There it was, faint, muffled, and heartbreaking. A child's whimper. The door rolled up with a metallic groan. Inside, the air felt cold and stale. A single hanging bulb flickered overhead, casting long, distorted shadows across the concrete floor. Against the back wall sat a large wooden crate, the lid partially unscrewed, tiny fingers gripping the edge from the inside. Marissa rushed forward, unscrewing the remaining bolts. The lid slid off with a heavy thud. Inside were two children, a boy and a girl, both no older than 10. Their wrists weren't tied, but their eyes were red, frightened, and exhausted. They shrank back until Marissa lifted her hands gently. "You're safe now. It's over. You're safe." But as they guided the children out, Jonah noticed something else in the unit. On a small folding table sat files, dozens of them, each one labeled with street names, addresses, dates, and in the center was a single envelope, marked only with a handwritten name: Cameron. Inside was a note: "You did good. This is just the beginning." Before they could process the meaning, a radio call erupted through the corridor. Be advised, surveillance footage from the entrance shows a vehicle leaving the facility 15 minutes ago. Black van, no plates, possible suspect inside. Marissa exchanged a look with Jonah, a look of grim clarity. Eli Brennan had been here. He'd heard the police coming, and he'd escaped with someone else still in his custody. Back at the station, they confronted Cameron with the note. His composure broke entirely. He promised he'd make it stop. He said if I helped him, he'd let the others go. What others? Marissa demanded. Cameron lifted trembling hands to his face. The ones he took before me. A silence fell over the room, heavy, suffocating. In the hallway, Jonah studied the files from Unit 47, the addresses stretching across counties, some even across state lines. This wasn't a small operation. This was a network, a system built on secrecy and fear. And Brennan wasn't done. As officers rushed to issue alerts statewide, Marissa stared at the photo of Eli Brennan, the man investigators once believed had vanished forever. He hadn't vanished. He had evolved. And somewhere out there, another child was sitting in a van, waiting for someone to save them. If you thought this story was intense, the narrator would say in any true crime documentary, you're not ready for the next one. Hit subscribe, because this case is far from over.